sign, but that's not the case anymore. And I am confident of, no, I mean, I signed the manifest, and the reality for me to be able to find something that's wrong or even illegal is really difficult to do. Occasionally I ask questions, especially when something is really high or really low. And I usually get immediate answers.
Right, because after I was treasurer, because that lasted for a couple of years, and then I became the signer of the manifest, and there were several times looking over invoices that I did have questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, if you have the same person doing both, I think the auditors will pick it up with a finding. Even though the checks are signed automatically, which is, I don't know, it's a little bit, considering one of our members is on as the listed treasurer, it does make you a little nervous that your name is sitting on millions of dollars worth of checks, but somebody has to do it.
Okay, I will take a motion. We'll do this in a couple different steps. I will take a motion to remove Bill Yates as treasurer.
I will second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And I am an aye.
That was
I will
quick. You
take
got
a
fired.
motion to elect John as treasurer for the SU board.
So moved.
Motion to elect John for treasurer of the board.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, everyone else. Moving on, I will take a, did we do the signer of the manifest, or we're getting to that?
We're getting to it.
I will take a motion, I will take nominations for signer of the manifest. I am currently the signer of the manifest, and I am happy to continue in that role.
Nominate Bill.
Thank you. All in,
I'll
I
second
will
Bill.
second.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
Amy.
And we need two signers of the manifest. There is not a signer and an assistant, but I will happily take the lead and continue in my role. Do I have a nomination for another signer of the manifest?
I'll nominate Sarah. Yeah,
I accept.
Okay,
we need a second one.
do we have a second?
Amy, I'll second.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of Bill and Sarah being signers of the manifest, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
So just a quick question, Bill. So I'm your backup or I have to go also?
You're my backup.
Okay. And you'll let me
Yeah.
know if for some reason you can't, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Election of budget committee members. So this is,
3 members, typically 1 from each district.
Yep.
Sarah has served on it, Anne Marie served on it, Ryan has served on it. Elizabeth has served on it, so whoever you want.
yep, let's do this district by district.
Can someone explain like what it entails?
Yep,
So the budget committee is basically like the BAC, but for the board. When we do the SU budget in the fall, the 3 board members elected to this position, we would meet regularly in September and October. We usually meet on Fridays in the morning, every other week as I build out the budget in the budget book, and we work together on it before presenting it to the full SU board.
let's start with the Ascutney board. Does anyone have a nomination for the Ascutney board? Do we have anybody who's interested in doing it from the Ascutney board? Who did it this year, Larry?
Elizabeth.
Okay.
I will nominate Elizabeth Burrows.
I will second it. Okay. I will take a voice vote, do we have any discussion?
And Elizabeth is not here tonight,
Right,
right?
she's at Hartford at the public education.
Oh, she's at the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I figure she really doesn't want to do it. We can just.
Yeah, we can switch it. All in favor of Elizabeth Burrows being the member for Mount Scotty School District, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Okay, Wesfield. Any nominations for,
I nominate
Wednesday.
John Harrison.
pardon?
I nominate John Harrison.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Miss Amy, I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of John Harrison being on the SU Budget Committee? Please say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, John. I do apologize, Anne Marie. I thought you said Dawn. I forgot my hearing aids tonight, so it took me a second to put the two together. Heartland. Any nominations for Heartland on the Budget Committee?
Who is Ryan? Okay.
Who do we have from Heartland?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Oh, Ryan, there you are.
All right.
Ryan, you're in an awful lot of power here. And I prefer that you nominate someone so we can blame you. And it's not a big deal if you do nominate somebody, even if it's yourself. We can switch it next month.
I'll take nominations, or I'll agree to nominations for myself.
Okay. To make things all official, I will nominate you, Ryan. Okay, I'll be the nominee, and then.
And Amy seconds.
Letting it.
I
Okay,
accept.
okay, any discussion? It's a great way to get knowledge, Ryan, kind of understand the ins and outs. Spending any time with Larry is educational. All in favor of Ryan becoming the Heartland Budget Committee, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Okay. We have three.
Yes.
Designations of official newspapers. Believe we have the Valley News, and do we still do
VT Digger is
VT
one of the
Digger.
ones. I know Mount Scotty is Valley News and VT Digger.
we're not using VT Digger?
No, we are.
We are, yeah. Did we also use the Standard? I think at one point the SU board used the Standard.
I think it depends on whether they cover Heartland or not, because Windsor wasn't in their coverage area.
Right.
And we ended up.
Yeah. They used to have a Heartland section. I don't know if they covered the school, but they certainly covered the town.
Yeah.
Weathersfield is not covered by the Standard.
Pardon?
Weathersfield is not covered by the Standard.
We okay just having the Valley News and the BT Digger? I will take a motion for that.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Sarah.
Okay. All in favor of having BT Digger and the Valley News as our designations of office newspapers, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Establish meeting day, time, and place. We are the third Monday, is that correct?
I think so.
And we have it at fourth Monday, sorry. Fourth Monday. And it makes it a little difficult for Mount Scottney, but I don't mind it. And right now we're at 6 o'clock. For some, it's hard to get here, but I do enjoy that 8 o'clock cutoff. I will take a motion to keep it as is.
John,
Fourth
so
Monday,
moved.
6 o'clock. So move. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. All in favor of fourth Monday, 6 to 8, please say aye.
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 Hi.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. I will take a motion to, what would it be, Davis? Not a point, but adopt Robert rules for small boards as the governing structure of the SU board.
So moved.
Second, John.
Okay, any discussion? I'm not sure if there's really any other good way to do it, so.
I'm not sure what we do if that got voted down.
Yeah. I don't know what we would do if we didn't choose it. All in favor of Robert rules for small boards, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay, and abstentions. Okay. Moving on, changes, additions to the agenda. I don't have any. Does anybody have any? Bridget?
Bill, I'm concerned about D23 going over that policy tonight.
Yep.
Because it's an old draft that was posted on the agenda. There's an updated draft in our last meeting, which is much longer, if I'm correct. So I worry that the public hasn't had a chance to look over the new draft. I don't know how that one, ended up on the agenda, but at least my link shows the very shortened version.
Okay. Then I will make the decision to skip over D23. It does look different to me. I thought you had added a bunch of stuff. And because it is the third read, I think it is prudent to put it off to next month.
Super, thank you.
Yep. Okay, I will take a motion to approve the minutes of February 16th, 2026.
So moved, Davis.
We have a second?
Miss Amy,
Anyone?
second.
Yes.
Amy.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving of the minutes of February 16th, 2026, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Oh. Anyone else? I'm sorry, I kind of rushed that, getting into a groove here. Any opposed? Say nay. Abstentions?
Ryan.
Liz and Ryan, thank you. Public participation. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. Any public comment? Any announcement from board members? I'd like to just announce the fact that I appreciate your support for board chair, and I hope I am able to be successful, especially in the next year as we go into negotiations.
Like that announcement. I realized we have some new board members to this board and we didn't do an introduction at the beginning. So I wonder if now might be a good time to
I
make
think
sure
it'd be great.
everyone knows each other.
Okay. Get to my list. Okay, we do have 2 new board members here. Liz Frederick.
Mhm.
You're written down in my notes as Elizabeth, so it just takes me a
Oh,
second to
yeah.
go through. I'm like, wait, there's 2 Elizabeths here.
Sorry.
But you go by Liz.
I answered anything.
Be careful with that. I say that occasionally, and I won't go over what a lot of people, there's more than one we can call me. So, Liz, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm from West Windsor. I have 3 kids in this Windsor School District, Albert Bridge and Windsor, and actually a kid in Weathersfield. I am a librarian, and I'm just not prepared for this. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's fine.
Um,
That's plenty.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be part of, helping make things work
Yeah.
and
It's a
contribute.
it's a great pleasure to have you with us. Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan Pesanowski. I currently reside in Heartland. I have a first grader and 3 more on the way into the school over in Heartland. I'm currently a clinical microbiologist at the VA, and yeah, that's it.
So Ryan, I'm gonna practice your last name, Pesanowski.
Pesanowski, just like it is spelled. Sounds.
Pesanowski. Okay, I'll get there. Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other announcements? Thank you, Davis, for that suggestion. Okay. Policy discussion followed by motions. So we're going on to D44. Student use of cell phone, and this is a second reading. So I will not take a motion. Any comments, discussion? I'll swing into it. I think it's fairly well written. I, like many others, have concerns about enforcement and how it will impact especially high school staff and administrations. But it's going to be interesting, and it is statute, which means, for those of you who knew, it is Vermont law. So,
I have a question.
yes,
So for the implementation, for each school to provide storage of student cell phones, is there actually a plan for that?
That's what the procedures are for.
yeah,
So-
that would,
The next step would be, after, having procedures that would lay out specifically. Some, schools are using these pouches, some use some combination of lockers. Some keep it within pouches inside the classroom, rather than a designated spot in the building. Some places have 2 or 3 spots in the building where you take your pouch, so you can you have your cell phone on you at all times, and then you go and unlock it. These are all pricey options, but trying to find the right way. particularly at the high school.
So basically,
So there's no plan yet.
not yet.
Not yet. That's policy first.
Yeah. It's a great question. Any other discussion? Okay.
Sorry, just one quick question, because I know do all of our districts within the SU currently have procedures around this? Because I know that Mount Scottney does.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd just be interested to hear like how, I don't anticipate this isn't that much of a change
No,
for us, but I guess I'd just be interested to hear other district input. We also have the high school in the district too, which I think is where this is the most prevalent concern.
and so I believe right now, procedures that middle school and elementary students aren't allowed to have cell phones
Right.
at school.
Mhm.
And so this transition, the big transition would be to enforce it in high school.
Yeah, and I think the biggest change here is having some kind of separate storage, because
Right.
otherwise, I'm looking through this is more or less what we're already doing.
Right.
Okay, cool.
And I don't know how that's gonna impact the middle school.
Is separate storage required by law? Or is this,
Everything here, from what I've read, this was created by a Vismit to cover the law. Is it part of law? I haven't really read the law yet.
This is the VSBA model policy.
But that is a good question to look into before we do the third read.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I'm
yeah,
just a little concerned because I know some other local high schools have like off the pouches and things, and then kids buy like a $10 thing off Amazon that just unlocks them,
Yeah.
and it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
really, really expensive, and
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure how it's going to be. Sarah?
I know we have to kind of pass this before the actual procedure, but I mean, it would be helpful to know that going into this, like what our plan would be for storage. I know we have to do it either way, but what we decide on, it may be helpful.
I will let Christine know these questions,
Okay.
and maybe by next month, they might have options available to explain to us. And because I do agree with you, it'd be good to have a general idea of how we're going to attack it before the procedures is actually created. Thank you, Sarah.
And Bill, just one more note. So I think too that it's broad enough how it says this in, what is it? Under administrative responsibilities with where devices are stored. That's policy wise non-specific enough that could literally, by reading this is just like students keep their cell phones in their lockers, right? Like that would be a place that they're stored. So
Yeah.
I think that I agree. I want to hear what Christine and the administrators from across the SU have to say about it. But I also don't feel like this bounds us in too much into like having to like get some sort of expensive other options. I've heard that too, and I don't want to be doing that.
Especially if students have lockable lockers to start with.
Yeah,
And then to have a place to put them if a student accidentally or purposely brings them to a classroom.
right.
So here's the law, and basically it doesn't speak to storage, just says you can't.
Okay.
So the VSB and any policy must be as stringent as this model policy in statute. So this is more stringent, so it must be at least as stringent.
Yeah. My assumption on the storage is just that if they're not allowed in classrooms, they must be somewhere
It
else.
must be somewhere else.
Yeah. So
And my guess would be it's in the policy so that students' cell phone are secure.
yeah.
As well as, safe from being stolen or lost.
Mhm.
They are expensive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Larry. And
Yeah.
everyone else in the questions.
Second read of
Second read cardiology, cardiac emergency response plan, second read. Any discussion? John,
I noticed a section in there that required this policy being near every phone. And every classroom has a phone, and it just seems like it would just be one more piece of clutter. I'm not sure that that was the intent, that it was supposed to be near every phone. I'm not sure even being near the office phone is appropriate. I mean, it needs to become available. The cardiac team, which the schools are supposed to create, should be aware of it. But anyway, it just seems excessive.
Bill,
yes,
as our March 20th half-day in service, and previously, each school now has a trained team. So they're really responsible for this document. But I'm glad to know that every school has a full team at this point in time.
thank you, Bridget. So to John's point, I think we should, in the policy, it may also be within the law as well, John, that it be near a phone. And I agree with you, except for so maybe Bridget and Larry, you could address this, because I'm thinking of a building of 3 levels, like the Windsor schools. It used to be you would go into a school, and to get to the phone, you would open any nearby door and go in the door and grab a phone. The real issue these days is doors are all locked. And so, getting into a room requires someone to open it to be able to dial 911. And so in the Windsor School, where are they located now? Is there a phone there? Or a phone right next to it?
The AEDs,
The what?
the AEDs are the plan.
He's talking about the plan being posted by all.
John's talking about,
Oh,
not the AEDs. I think John's talking about, for
the plan to be posted.
4.3 says that the plan needs to be posted adjacent to each school telephone. I don't think that's, I agree with John that seems like overkill.
Yeah,
Lack of a better word for this policy, but
so near every phone.
every school
I just want to throw out, it doesn't say posted, it just says it needs to be adjacent.
adjacent.
So the question I would have on that, and this is from like working in a hospital, a lot of the times you'll have like kind of a compendium of emergency plans, like a binder or like a sheet like that. And that's the kind of thing I figure, like, if that's not in every classroom, that probably should be, right? Like, so if you have your fire plan, all of your different emergency plans, and this is part of it in an easily accessible, like, leaf binder. I mean, I think that would satisfy this requirement if we did that. Because I agree with John, yeah, if we're posting every one of those things up so you can just like point and look, then that's going to take a lot of wall space and be cluttered. But I think it's pretty
Adjacent seems pretty reasonable.
It's pretty standard practice to just have like a binder of like, if an emergency happens, you pull this out and flip to, your code red, code black, whatever.
So that would satisfy, if that binder existed in every classroom, that would satisfy this.
I believe so.
I think so. Adjacent, I mean, that sounds right.
No, I mean, does it exist in every classroom?
No, some classrooms it does. It's fire plan. There is a fire plan, but I don't know if it's a binder. Some of them actually literally might be posted
Right next
in
to
the
the
classroom. But I could talk to Christine about putting it in a binder form. John had his hand up again.
I got
So adjacent. Yeah. John?
a question I don't know the answer to. If you push 911 in a classroom a school classroom, does it go directly to 911 or does it go back to the office? And that should be clearly marked on the phone if they don't go directly to 911.
They by law, they have
They
to.
go to 911.
Yeah.
So they do
And
go
all of our
directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
And schools are all programmed for internet direct 911.
E911, yeah.
Yeah, with E911, which is really important for the tech department of each school district to make sure that everything's routed properly.
Every fall, yeah.
Yeah.
We go through it every fall.
Good question, John.
So maybe, for this one, this is a second read, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for this one, maybe we just get some feedback from Christine administration about how emergency plans in general are communicated. Maybe we can kind of work this into a slight revamp of that.
Yep.
If we're talking binders or supposed to.
Because it's not just, this is just the cardiac emergency plan, and there's other emergency plans as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and again, you go to any hospital, right, and you have the thing hanging near
Right.
in public, like nurses' stations, phones that are, special binders or looking and find things easily. Which,
All right, we'll work on that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're on C29, district equity policy. And this is the first read. And I'll start off. It is cleaning up some definitions and cleaning up how it describes the administrative responsibility. And it is cleaning up the cross references and legal references. And so this is basically just housekeeping on this one. Any other observations? Discussion?
Sorry, I have a question.
No, that's what this is for.
Under definitions, that last, the last sentence in equity.
Culture,
To be
okay.
achieved, equity requires an inclusive school environment and may necessitate an unequal distribution of resources and services based on the needs of each student. I'm not sure how the public reading that is going to take that wording. Also not really sure why, like, what's the connection between an inclusive school environment and an unequal distribution of resources and services? Like, why is that in one sentence?
Did you say the last one or the first one?
The
The,
last one on the definitions of equity.
yeah, the
Okay.
last sentence.
Oh, thank you. Biases.
I'm just not sure how the inclusivity is enacted.
Bill, I can comment from an academic point of view, if that's okay.
Sure, I think that'd be great. Thank you, Bridget.
So if we ended up with our data showing one school or another, or certain grade levels are significantly underperforming, or students who are on IEPs, then our distribution of assets would obviously change to target the needs of those kids that are underperforming. We also, through our title grants, must address schools that have higher poverty rates, and those schools, for equity reasons, do receive higher funds through title grants. So that's just from a curricular perspective.
I do have to admit, though, and I may be reading into it, but I'm also reading myself, Liz, that there does seem to be not a disconnect, but a different message in the first part of that, and then the second part. And so biases, employing practices that reflect the reality that all students will learn,
Well, I completely agree with.
and creating inclusive multiple, and
I think when
I think it
people
should be
read,
broken apart.
yeah, I think when people read inclusive, they're thinking, like, they're not thinking necessarily different academic levels.
Yeah.
Like, they're thinking of something else. So
I think this bullet point would be better served as two separate, more clear bullet points. Because as Bridget pointed out, the first part of it is exactly what she stated. And the fact that, you know, all the reality that all students will learn in creating inclusive multi-kind schools for adults and children. Yeah, okay. I think that can be cleaned, and I think it would probably take someone with more language ability than I have.
Yeah, and I hear where that would maybe ring again, because like the word like inclusion in the broader cultural context versus inclusion in the specifically educational context do have different connotations, I think. I know that in the educational context, like to me, it ties pretty cleanly back to the special education law, like IDA 2004, and the concept of free and appropriate public education, right? You, by federal law, by longstanding federal law, you have to include every student in those opportunities, which is where in that educational context it comes in. And I think that last sentence is put in there, and I if there's a better way of saying it, I mean, I'm down to consider it. I think that what it's sort of subtly doing is pointing out that the concepts of equity and equality are not the same concept, right? So that in order to have all students access free and appropriate public education, there are some learners who require more resources than learners that are in their same cohort.
Yeah, it's just that inclusive is defined below that.
Yeah.
To also include social, like a lot of stuff that is.
Yeah, it does have a broad definition.
So,
My only criticism, I guess my main criticism is the fact that a little too much meaning is being shoved into that single sentence for most people to understand.
Yeah.
Even myself.
Good first reading question.
Yep. Any other discussion?
I'll make sure she gets those notes.
Okay, thank you, Larry. F40,
All right,
procurement.
F40. This one should be first reading, and it's pretty simple. The only thing different on this one is this came back from the auditors. So the auditors want us to include language to match our policy matches our procedures. So basically all we did was we added the under page 2. The Windsor Southeast Supervisor Union will check sam.gov to ensure that the vendor has not been suspended or barred from receiving federal funds. We do this already. It's part of our procedures. It wasn't in the policy. Now it's in the policy.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Any comments, discussion?
Sam.gov is a clearinghouse for all vendors that do business with the federal government.
Yes. Okay, F20, fiscal management and general financial accountability.
This one, first reading. This is updated by the VSBA. There's been some changes since it was last adopted by us. This reflects the VSBA changes. Basically, what we're talking about is we want to make sure we have controls in place. So what was talked about earlier when we brought the treasurer and the signers of the manifest, that happens today within the central office. So I don't sign checks, but I approve POs. I approve POs, but I don't create a vendor in the system. I don't print checks. I can't print checks because I approve POs. Those kind of things. I approve all the contracts and the payroll amounts that go into payroll, but I don't. I can't add an employee into the payroll system. That would be administrative control. This talks about everything we currently do. We are pretty much in line with the VSBA. I give you quarterly updates. The next quarter will come for the FU board will be in April, because the quarter ends in March. The end of the third quarter.
And I'm assuming when this is all said and done, the notes at the end will be updated as well. Where it says VSBA version.
Yeah.
That will all be changed when it was adopted. legal references?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
You got it.
F-26 security cameras. This is some. Just taking out the general principles and, am I reading this right, Larry?
Yeah.
Taking out the general principles and adding it in as administrative responsibilities.
That's correct.
Okay. And
So there's no
changing the
material,
language.
there's no material change to this policy. It's just,
There is,
okay.
they, like A, it refers, is now one. It includes school district and SU properties, and so annual buses, yeah. I'd have to go through the whole thing, but it looks like
There are some differences.
there are some differences, yeah.
And a lot of this stuff we already do now, like only authorized staff use security cameras for live day and night viewing. A lot of this is handled by IT at this point, and they have access, so they can, the way they set up the system, the software is, just like the old days where, the old systems, you could have a monitor, right? And it would be recording, but they couldn't go back over recording. That's, we can do that now. So for example, administrative assistants can see the live feed, but can't necessarily have the permissions to go back and see something from 3 hours ago. That would only be the principals or the superintendent.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is the same, but it is that the language has been tweaked.
Yeah.
For example, around harassment, hazing, and bullying. That's now no longer in parentheses.
Yeah.
It's actually not. Yeah, it's actually in the actual language. Things like that. Okay. Any discussion? Definitely.
One thing. Oh, yeah, only comment is where we do reference the other policies there, it might just be worth doing the cross-reference to the bottom too, so it's easy to.
Yeah.
Bridge off.
Okay.
Yeah, because as part of the new language, it does state that this will comply with all the policies of the cross-reference. Important.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we're on to the administrative report.
Okay, so just for people joining us a little later, Christine is at a public education forum, so that's why I am giving the administration report tonight. And I'll do my best. Here we go. So obviously our strategic goals, student success and engagement, lots of community events around the SU, invention convention, 4th grade at Weathersfield, can't read a lot at Weathersfield and Heartland. Showing some examples of goal number 1. Student success and engagement under the big top at Windsor. If everybody was wondering what the balloons and everything was for. Additionally, these are some of the science fair winners and their prizes and their awards. U.S. Air Force for Wilson Engwall, APA for Sigarelli, Vermont Academy of Arts and Sciences for Jocelyn. It's awesome. Culture and student wellness. Outright Vermont Leadership Day took place on March 11th. Students went to the State House where they learned inclusive youth deserve to be involved in decisions that affect their lives. Leadership Day. So they went to the State House, and I think that's a board member right there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's Elizabeth. Goal 2. multi-age literacy groups at Albert Bridge, and K2, a sewing elective at Heartland, where students make dog leashes and cat beds to donate to Lucy McKenzie, and Windsor middle level science students for teaching other group projects. Another culture, student staff wellness, Ian, you might have seen his, and we'll be looking to get the information out there longer about that, more often about his testimony to the various state committees. But Valley News covered it, how we are prioritizing fresh and local foods, and he's using a lot of grant money to do that. You might have seen the fridges in the schools with the fruit and vegetables easily available. Special ed update. I saw Jen on the call if she wants to speak to this, but basically the third quarter financials, which I referenced 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago, they will reflect some unexpected expenditures for special ed. These are changes from when we did the budget for recent students who have come in. And however, we do anticipate some offsetting revenues as I do my SEER report. Jen, is there anything else I'm missing?
No, Larry, I think you summed that up nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. So just want to give you a heads up when you see those third quarter financials next month. Some legislative updates, PCB testing in Vermont schools. This is currently a bill, it's not been signed yet, would end the current statewide mandate requiring Vermont schools to test buildings. Our schools were not tested. Windsor was waived, obviously, because of the newness of the building. So they didn't have, but none of our other ones, Heartland, Albert Bridge, and Weathersfield, portions of Weathersfield are new, but the other portions would have been tested. That has ended. However, they still have state authority and funding to finish the remediation efforts in the other schools that were affected. This is an update on Medicaid, this bill on Medicaid school-based services program. This bill changes how federal Medicaid funds are shared. School districts would now receive an increased share, 55% of federal reimbursement grant generated by eligible services. This adjustment is designed to change the flow of federal dollars back to local districts to help offset some of the costs of Medicaid eligible services. S220, education spending caps. So this one has moved on. It is out of committee. So what this did was, this was originally just a hard cap, and now they have not gone that way. They have decided to use the excess spending threshold, which but lowering it from 118% to 112% with a JFO analysis. All this stuff is linked here. Basically, so the way it would do for our purposes, it would be trying on our schools to have the excess spending threshold. All of our schools for the first time, but our schools have been bumped up against the excess spending threshold this year. This would make it worse, basically. Again, not signed but yet by law. There is statements coming out from the VSA and the VSBA going against some parts of this law, I should say. Davis.
My assumption is that even while they're lowering the excess spending threshold, we're still tied. Spending still includes healthcare costs and
Yes.
special education. Yeah. So
Yes, yeah, Marie, question.
I just wanted to say that this seems really inequitable to me in that, like, you have school districts that are around $9,000 per pupil, and then you have school districts around 20. And when you go by a percentage, you're more or less saying that the school districts that are only spending 9,000 on their kids now are never going to catch up to the ones that are spending 20.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Anne Marie. And some of the people who preferred this excess spending threshold rather than the hard cap they believe it would be an on-ramp to the foundation funding formula that the legislature seems to be full steam ahead, as insofar as the maps have not come out yet and not been blessed. It's signed by the governor. The foundation funding formula seems like a feature that the legislature wants. And you're right, Emery, because in the foundation funding formula, school districts like Slate Valley would have to spend a lot more per student to catch up, and which would raise their taxes locally, even though it's a statewide system. And other school districts which are over the excess spending threshold or would be over the foundation funding formula would have to seriously cut back on their budgets. So more news to follow. Some people view it as kind of a win because it's not a hard cap, and but however, it does make that excess spending threshold more draconian than what it is today.
Yeah.
And then remember, and this is for FY 28-29. This does not affect FY 27. The next one is this bill expands access to CTE programs for all Vermont students. This is a very interesting bill. It also would, my understanding is, for example, the CTE program at Hartford would no longer be Hartford's CTE program. They would all be state CTE programs. So the 13 or so CTE across the state would have its own separate funding, its own separate administration at the state level. How that's going to actually work, who knows? But that is currently what would happen.
Are they gonna, I mean, there's some
Yeah.
lofty goals there.
Yeah,
Or are
very
they
lofty.
going to create funding for expanding and building the room for CTE education? And you're calling, you know,
The
basic infrastructure.
Yeah, so I was at a VSA conference a month and a half ago, and that those questions were asked, and that was not in the bill at the time. I have not seen the latest draft, but at the time, there was nothing speaking to expansion, footprints. What do you do with the CTEs that are, in Hartford's case, literally part of the building of the high school, and other CTEs, which, as you know, are like standalone, not attached to a high school except by district.
And so
The physical plan, not
yeah, you've got, you know, Hartford basically has a not much over a 300 student cap just because of space.
Yeah. Does somebody have their hand up?
Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
The bills we're talking about are, Senate bills, and crossover has gone by already. Are these bills going to be dead for this year? Do you know?
S220, I believe, has made it out. That was
Okay.
my understanding.
But
I
not
can't speak to the CTE
13.
one. No, I'm not positive on that. I
So
will get back
that's
to you on that
essentially
one.
dead, probably dead then.
I will double check on S313. But S220 I know is happening.
It was voted out.
They-
And it's in the House.
Yes.
Okay.
It's yes. And again, there was a lot of horse trading with that one because the hard cap obviously was a sticking point for many legislators. And I think the amendment that made it a tighter excess spending threshold is what got it out. Last thing was Act 73 is exempt from standard crossover timeline because it governs other policy bills. So this is what they're talking about at Hartford tonight. There are basically at this point, and this could all change tomorrow, but there is a House plan called the Conlon Plan, and there's a Senate plan called the Bongards Plan. Under the Conlon Plan, for our SU, if it was passed as it is, there would be a merger with us and Hartford, leaving Mountain View's out, and it would be a district, not an SU. Presumably, you would have a K-12 district with 2 high schools, and that would be up to the new board to decide interdistrict choice, I guess. The Bongards Plan is more similar to what we have now, but just much larger. So, for example, it would be an SU model called the Upper Valley SU, which would consist of our SU, Hartford School District, and Mountain View's SU, and all their Killington, the member district. And that would be an SU model. The Bongards Plan also is a little more detailed, which I won't get into here, but
basically it would incentivize some of those SUs to merge within their districts. For example, Heartland and Weathersfield are both K districts with tuitioning. They would be incentivized to merge. And if they merged ahead of time and existed as part of the SU, they would be outside of the 45 district limit that the Bongarts plan calls for. So basically, the Bongarts plan calls for 45 school districts, first come, first serve. So there would be an incentive. For example, I'm just picking 3 districts: Mount Scotty School District and Hartford and Woodstock would be incentivized to merge as a K-12, and the K-8s could merge, and you would have an SU with as the governing body. Basically, what we have here now, but bigger. So those are the 2 plans. Whether or not they can come to an agreement, it's beyond me. Is there any questions about my administrative report before we move on to the data report?
Just point out, I appreciate that it says that current timelines established in Act 73 seem unworkable.
Yes.
That continues to be a thing.
Moving on, next on the agenda is a data report, which Bridget, I will present up here and you can
Okay.
walk me through.
Super. I appreciate it. So basically, go back to the very first slide. So the winter data assessment is to compare where we were at the fall to where we are right now, almost like a mid-year check. This data is used often to write our title grants, as last winter was, but it also provides us an opportunity to see what kind of adjustments we can make with the remainder of the year. In the spring, because I know the board has requested this, we will look at growth in actual grade levels. So we will look at last year's kindergarten in the spring and how they're doing as first graders in our spring upcoming. So that's sort of a different flavor so that we can look at whole class and how they move along and what they're learning. So what percentage of children make the benchmark? So now you can go to slide number 3. So this is our early reading data. This is known as M-Class Dibbles, SU-wide. And you can see that we made pretty significant growth from, I'm rounding up so everyone knows, 36% to 49%. And that's over X number of months. It has not been very long. I would credit our teachers at the tier 1 level. We've been doing focused work on literacy, so I think it's really paying off. We also have a collaboration with the Agency of Education around early literacy. In addition, our intensive support by our interventionists has become extremely organized with progress monitoring and work, and they meet monthly together, and I think it's really paying off. Not to mention that students in general become more accustomed to, especially the little ones, taking this type of assessment. But the gains in reading are terrific. We set an SU-wide goal of 45%. So we exceeded that goal. So that's really good news on our early reading. And I predict we'll continue to see this growth. So on slide number 5, this is our STAR reading data SU-wide. We are at 59% and we stayed at 59%. That's not the end of the world because your winter assessment is much harder than your fall one, but we would like to see growth. Our goal was 64%, so we fell short on that. And as we dig down into the different grade levels, we'll see some kinds of patterns and areas with which we need to address. But I do want to reemphasize that having 59% of our students meet the benchmark, both in the fall and then again in the winter, is actual growth because the test is more difficult. So students are learning, but we're not making the kinds of gains that we set out in terms of our goal setting, what we call our WIG goals for the SU. Next.
Students are normed on, I think it's important to point out that students are normed by age.
Yeah,
So
these are
they're paid-
yeah, these are benchmark goals for the grade levels. That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay. So, in the Vermont benchmarks. So, in the area of 3 through 5, you can see again, this is a area where we went, actually down from 57, 58% to 50%. And honestly, from a curriculum perspective, this is our area of greatest focus this next semester, is why are we seeing a drop in the 3 through 5 reading performance? And there's a few ideas that I have, and that is one of which is that the skills sequence with our curriculum program stops after grade 2. And so we still have students in grades 3, 4, and 5 that need specific skill in instruction, including in phonics and other areas. And the curriculum that we have does not specifically address that. So that's an area we're looking at with the instructional leaders and principals, and hopefully with some changes made, we're hoping to see some better growth in that area. Now you see the opposite with 6 through 8. Their scores are very strong and continue to grow. And so that's why we get the percentage pulled up. And generally, I feel like our reading performance in our middle grades, always room for growth. But in general, they tend to be pretty strong. And part of that is that children experience literacy, not just in their reading class, right, in their ELA, but they also write and read frequently in social studies and science. So it's almost like they get triple doses. I know that's happening also at the 3 through 5, but I think the emphasis on vocabulary and writing has really helped our middle schoolers. So they grow very much from 3 through 5 and continue to grow through middle school, which is wonderful to see. And this is 9 and 10. Again, percentages have stayed about the same, but again, you're looking at a more difficult test. I would say this is about 10% lower than we often see in our 9th and 10th graders. Reading tends to be a strong suit. So working with the teachers, we've been talking about what this data means and areas with which we can put in some emphasis, whether it's vocabulary development or writing or whatever piece. Okay, so we're in STAR Math. So we're looking here at SU-wide math. We did reach our goal in terms of SU-wide math, 46 to almost 51%. We had a goal in math to reach 50%. So that was in very good shape in terms of meeting that. This does not include 9 and 10 data. So this is K through 8 because it's across the SU. With 9 and 10 data, we're almost at 49%, so not far off in terms of the goal that we set at the beginning with WIGS. Continue. So this is our K2 data. This is very strong data. I have a lot of thoughts as to why. One of which is that, especially in Windsor, they implemented Bridges Number Corner, which is a added math time period where students work on fluency and meaning basically through the daily calendar. It's an amazing program. Anyone has a chance to stop in and see an elementary classroom when this is in action. And we saw dramatic changes in terms of Windsor's early math performance. And so we've actually are waiting to approval for a grant to get the Number Corner program, which is an instructional program, into Heartland and Wethersfield. And we have enough materials from other spending sources to also get it into Albert Bridge. Again, this is the area 3 through 5. If you take a look again at the performance, a more difficult test, but we would like to see that push back up. Again, if we think about our SU goal is 50%, we're falling slightly short again in the grades 3 through 5 around math. Conceptually, things get much more difficult by the time students reach 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. It's quite a jump from the earlier years. Okay, in 6 through 8, And honestly, in comparison to the state, these numbers look very good. There was a small growth in them. We tend to have our sixth grade, one of our highest performing grades. We'll talk about when we get to Vermont CAPS, what often happens in 7 and 8. But in general, if you take a look at this data, I'm sure I would like it to match the reading data up in the 60s, but I'm grateful that it's at the 50s level and not in the 30s level. Across our nation, we are really struggling, especially with middle school math and 9th grade. So this, in terms of this data, it's not as high as we ever would like, but it also has shown some consistent growth.
Well, it's considerably better than what we saw 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's what, and that is my point. We are definitely on the right track. So this is grades 9 to 10. One thing I have to say, and we'll see this in a moment, we're finding that our grades 9 Vermont CAP, the alignment, the predictability using STAR with math slightly over predicts performance levels that should be better than they actually are. It may or may not be because of how students approach STAR, that they're used to taking 3 times a year versus Vermont CAPS, but we are finding that the alignment between the literacy and Vermont CAPS literacy and STAR is fairly aligned, whereas math, we find that STAR data better than Track My Progress, but it's still predicting a slightly higher achievement than we're actually getting out of Vermont CAPS. And we'll be looking at that. That's not true for all grade levels, and I'll point out where. But our 9th and 10th grade here is probably a little higher in predictability than we're seeing in Vermont CAPS.
Have you thought about doing a beta of the algebra test in STAR on some level?
So
Might
we
that be
used
more
the algebra
reliable?
test last year in STAR, and
Goodbye, Bridget.
wasn't generating. We tried that, but it also doesn't generate useful reports. So the kind of breakdowns that you get, I also want to say that STAR math goes all the way up through Algebra 2 and beyond. So it should be the students that are taking the 9th grade should be getting predominantly algebra, and the students that are taking 10th grade should be getting predominantly geometry. So that's how they sequence it in their heads. But we'll see when we get to Vermont CAPS, Bill, what I'm talking about here in terms of alignment. So,
Okay.
so on to,
Well, it'd
So
be interesting.
this is the demographic.
Bridget, if you could, Bridget, can I just jump in? It would be interesting after you get the VT cap to also break out the sub skills and see how they align.
Yep.
For
Yep.
9 and 10.
Yep. And some of it, Bill, is exposure. How far do you get in the curriculum? Emphasis around statistics, for example. How much are we revisiting skills in geometry, algebra skills when students are in geometry? So there's a number of things that on the surface that I already know. But yes, sub-skill look, math is going to be our focus for next year. So the good news is we'll be doing a lot of that kind of breakdown work, and I think it will be very helpful to know so that we can know where to focus professional development. So here we're on comparison of free and reduced lunch. Students soar at an economic disadvantage as measured from that. And in general, we run about a 10% gap in both literacy and math. In this case, we've got, again, we're looking small here. So we have 52, 54 for students that are on free and reduced lunch, and about 10% higher, both in our fall data and in our winter data for students who are not at an economic disadvantage as measured by free and reduced lunch. So we have about a 10% gap. I'm glad that that is all that it is, but it does indicate things like outreach. Are we connecting with parents? Are we making them aware that tutoring is available? All the kinds of efforts that we're putting in is very important to continue so that we don't see those gaps based on income. They're not as large as they could be, but I'd like to see no gap in a ideal world. So if you flip to the next one, which is STAR Math, you'll see the same kind of pattern. The gap slightly larger, but we still see that the gap existing between math performance. Generally, math tends to be larger in this way between students at an economic disadvantage and those students who are not.
That's pretty expected, but you know, those numbers are pretty good.
Yes, I know. But,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of obviously equity and reaching out, I think in general, though, our intervention system, and now we have tutoring going on at all schools, before school and after school, I think that is really helping reach students, both students who are at an economic disadvantage and those that are not. So I think those intervention steps are huge in closing up these gaps. Okay, returning to the next, So this is an interesting slide because students that are on an IEP, there is obviously a number of them that are identified in reading. So you're looking at a kind of a funny database where we know that these students have a disability in reading, and yet we want to close the gap. So we've seen some growth in that from the fall. And I think part of what we continue to do is have shared groups of double dosing, have our special ed case managers talking to our interventionists so that practices around progress monitoring. Jen has done a lot of work with this. Rates of improvement that we're looking for. I think that this is very good news that we're starting to close the gap in terms of performance with students that are on an IEP, especially around reading, and those students who are not. So growth in that area, hopefully we'll continue to see that growth. Jen and I have talked a lot about what kind of training special ed teachers, paras, et cetera, need in the content areas around supporting reading and math, specifically as it's connected to the classroom. And I feel like we really are beginning to see partnerships across the school in setting up double dosing in classrooms during WIN time. And also, as I discussed, shared intervention groups and, you know, looking at rates of improvement. So in the right direction. Next one in math. So here we see in math, again, I feel in general, math becomes our focus next year. There isn't the kind of growth that we've seen with students that are on an IEP in the area of math. I do think that in general, both elementary and special ed case managers have a wealth of experience in teaching literacy and how we deal with math and math intervention and what we need. That's an area that we will continue to need support. And I'm not surprised in a way to see this, especially with so much emphasis right now on the area of literacy going on in the schools. Okay, so these were the ones I talked to you about in terms of Vermont caps. They're broken down by grade level. We're comparing our third grade to the state's third grade. These are last spring's Vermont cap scores. There's a lot of lag time between when we actually get them. So in general, you're looking at red as the state and the blue as the SU level. And so this is an interesting pattern because we're seeing a lot of the same kind of data when we're looking at our STAR data. Where do we have our greatest gaps? Like in third grade is one place, with fourth grade catching up, and in fifth grade about even with the state in terms of the number of students that meet the benchmark, the state benchmark this is. In sixth grade, we actually exceed the benchmark from in terms of the state and how the state overall did. In seventh, we're about even. In eighth, we're about even. And in ninth, again, we exceed how the state does. And this is in the area of ELA, so literacy. So those are good. Math is a very different kind of picture. And I have to tell you, this is a nationwide picture. It's also Vermont. So obviously below. Also in fourth grade, and again, that aligns with what we're seeing in our STAR data. By fifth grade, our students, the percentage of students that meet the benchmark have exceeded the state. In sixth grade, we're even with the state. And then we begin in RSU, seventh dropping, eighth dropping, and ninth dropping. Next year, one of our huge focuses is on that transit eighth graders and ninth graders and what's going on in terms of our math and what we can do. The state is also involved in initiatives. We may or may not tie into that depending on what they do. But it's just that it's that flattening and that dropping in performance that happens, especially by the time our students get into eighth grade. And it carries over into their ninth grade readiness for algebra and everything else. So these are not good numbers, but I think they're realistic numbers. And I look forward to kind of focusing on math and especially at the middle and high school level next year. Okay, so science scores looking very good in fifth and eighth grade, exceeding Vermont. You know, 11th grade is a funny year because it's a funny year to test anyway, but a lot of students take very different course loads by 11th grade. So generally they have bio, earth, and the environment, and then some get physics and some take chemistry. So we have this sort of divergent path, excuse me, and then some of them don't get in their third year of science till their senior year. So I'm not surprised that we see this. Vermont is changing its graduation requirements. It may or may not affect the area of science. I've got to look deeply into that. But in the earlier grades, it looks like what's happening in our fifth and eighth grade is going very well. Some tightening up on our 11th graders and how we can support them. You know, it also is, you could have a child focus on physics all the way through. That'll only help them with a portion of the test. And so it's something that we can look at with our science teachers at the 11th grade level. So these are, we'll go through these quickly. You guys have seen probably or will see your specific MBA data about attendance. Overall, we have a 94% attendance rate with a lot of tardies. That means even if a child's 5 minutes late to in elementary school, it'll be marked as a first period tardy. So lots of tardies, some due to weather. And so at the high school level, especially, we're tracking periods and tardiness much tighter. So this is providing principals with the data they need. Next slide.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, actually, go back. This in regards to the red and blue graphs. Two of our schools have school choice. When students, when they enter ninth grade, choose to go to a more, if you will, gifted school, does that skew our numbers somewhat?
Well, we wouldn't have, like, let's say a student at Hartford, Woodstock, Hanover, we wouldn't have obviously their data included in this.
Okay.
It would be though, John, it would be interesting to have that data put in at some point in time, how our ninth graders are performing. So that's data that Woodstock would have, if that makes sense.
And it is meshed into our numbers.
No, we won't have ninth grade numbers in ninth grade students that don't attend Windsor High School. This is just Windsor High School data.
Okay. And then if a student decided to go to KUA, those numbers would not be in the list.
It wouldn't take BCAP.
Yeah.
Well, and again, KUA doesn't have any state assessment responsibilities at all. So they have their own thing. So.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm getting.
Yeah. Bridget. Bridget, did I lose her?
Connections.
Bridget, yeah,
I know.
you may want to close your camera. That'll give you more bandwidth for audio.
Okay, camera's off.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Is that a little better?
That is,
Okay, so again, you've seen these at your local level, at the school level. So again, these are logins. You'll notice that logins in general, which hopefully correlates with behavior, have dropped across the SU as the months have progressed, which is good news about behavioral expectations. Larry, next one. And then locations are not a surprise, mainly classroom, around defiance, disruption. Most of our reports often come from there. And then what I call the looser times of the day, hallways and playgrounds. That's fairly uniform across the SU at every single one of the school sites. And finally, not surprisingly with children, the time of day, as we approach the hungry, overtired time period, we tend to see an increase. It's also when they often have lunch and recess, so it's not a structured time. We're not surprised that most of our reports happen in the middle of the day. You know, grow toward that and then stop. And so again, you'll see over on the left-hand side, most of our reports are around defiance, disrespect, and disruption. A lot of that's classroom, and you know, it's setting expectations for behaviors. So it's a good, we don't want to see any, but it's a good thing that these patterns have been addressed and logged in, and expectations are set for what a what a classroom should look like.
Is it? It was just me.
Davis.
Yeah, I think that we covered this at the local level, but can you just remind us what the no subtype column is?
So that just means someone did not enter what it was that was going on. They might have entered it in the dialogue, but yeah, we're going to try and address that to remind them, for whatever reason, this should be a default setting that they have to enter, otherwise it won't submit.
Yeah.
But we've got a glitch right there. And so if they don't check off which of the categories this falls under, we get that big yellow there.
yeah, that should be a requirement.
Yeah. I think it's a setting issue we'll address, so.
Yeah.
So overall,
Okay, thank you.
Data, I would like to hear from you. You guys have any question? I do like to see the growth data in the springtime or summer. So thoughts?
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you were talking about students on IEPs, generally that data never improves because it is a self-depreciating piece of data. All the effort and great works that go in ends up that the student is then taken off an IEP, so that success is dropped out of that category. So it's sort of a self-defeating data point.
Agree.
I think that's
it is. It's a funny measure. Yeah.
Yeah. What would be really interesting though is, and you wouldn't be able to do it, is to look at students with a reading disability and how they do on their reading, not just students on IEPs, but students with reading disabilities. But I don't think that'd be the whole to do.
Yeah, I think the same could be said for students who ever were on an IEP, right? So that you actually can track the data for those students who improve to the point where they no longer require.
Yeah, I think that one's actually in my job. And it's really kind of interesting because you have all those high school students who are doing much better, most of them on 504s, and then you can project that data as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bridget.
No problem. Any questions? Any questions you guys have that you can't think of now, email me.
So John brought up a point, about the high school data being a different set of kids than the K through 8. And to kind of finish his point where I think he was thinking is like, it looks like what we're having is the high achieving kids leaving the SU, right, for school choice, etc. So when we're looking, because we're looking at this, right, all three schools, K through 8, right? And then 9 through 12 is just the kids left in Windsor.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the school district. So for example, at Weathersfield, the plurality of the students go to Windsor. So 40 plus students go to Windsor, 20 go to Woodstock, 10 go to Springfield. And then the rest are a little bit here and a little bit there. Maybe 2 go to Hartford and 4 go to Thetford. So I don't know.
And they have some
You'd have
go
to follow up
KUA
and see how much.
here.
Yeah, some might go to KUA, 1 or 2, right? You know, or more than that, maybe 4, I think.
Then you get quite a few go to Heartland, quite a few go to Hartford.
Hartford. Now, Heartland's a different mix, and
Yeah.
but you know, if for example, if Heartland gets, if Hartford, for example, gets 45, 50 of the Heartland kids,
Yeah.
right, and 3 of them or 5 of them go to Windsor, but they're the top 10 at Windsor, and those are pretty high achieving kids. For example, I can think of a graduate last year.
Right, I wasn't saying that like no high achieving kids go to Windsor. I'm just saying that looking at those numbers, it's concerning to me. Like,
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
saying that.
But being in, in the Windsor district is a little concerning because it makes me think that those numbers are being lifted up by kids largely outside of the Windsor district.
To answer that, Bridget would have to disaggregate by building, correct, Bridget?
Yeah, I would not only have to do that, but I would have to look at as best we could, how our former 8th graders are doing in other school districts, right? So there is a bunch of things that we can look at. I will say we get a fairly decent, what I believe is a fairly regular group of students that perform in the blue or green, eventually. And so I'm not sure, again, the pattern of drop off in 9th grade, especially in math. We normally see reading up in the 60th percentile, but the drop off in math is disconcerting across the state. For us, it's a little bit more intensely disconcerting, but I would say that's something for us to look at. But in terms of the students that we get in from Weathersfield, and from Heartland, I think they're fairly, I don't want to say normally distributed because it ruins individuality, but I don't think that we are lacking high achieving students at Windsor High School. And there's a lot of reasons for which people choose schools, from family to commuting to whatever. So, I think that pattern, the things to watch for is college attendance, taking upper level courses and those kind of things. But if the board wants more data on that, that's certainly a study I could work with Christine.
Well, that,
Another thing that's interesting, I think, the drop off occurs before 9th grade, SU wide, right? So if you go back, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget, but it goes really 7th and 8th grade. I think you could look at 9th as just a continuation of what is already occurring. Number one. The other thing I would say is, I think what John and Liz, I think a better way to say it would be, K through 8 data that Bridget has is all our kids, and 9 through 10 is not. I think that might be a better way of saying it. Yeah, Davis.
Yeah, one thing I wonder with that drop off too, because you can see in the data that there's some state trend, but it's more pronounced in our SU. I wonder, and I'm sure this is something that you've considered frequently, but the kind of continuity between grade level math transitioning into mid-level math and high school math. Because I know from remembering being a student, there are some jumps in complexity in the way the content is delivered, and I just wondered if the transition in overall setting, but also in content, if there are some kind of bridges and like scaffolding that could potentially help make that a little bit more smooth. And I know that's like what you do. So
yeah, and I will say that continuity in instructor really helps, and the places where we have the most consistent teachers that have stayed year after year after year after year, we generally are seeing better data. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, that teacher turnover is a really important aspect of, lack of teacher turnover actually is a big help in year after year working with children and understanding where they're at. I also am of the opinion that across the United States, that I call the middle school years the great flattening. I think that in general, we can push our kids, 6, 7, 8, with, the curriculum that we have. And now Vermont is also requiring algebra for 9th graders and by 9th grade, and geometry for all 10th graders starting in 2028. So I think for a number of years post-COVID, we started to allow a little bit more room about when you took algebra or when you took geometry, if you took geometry. And that's starting to change again as Vermont focuses back on some of the rigor that they used to have. So I think all these things and focusing on math next year are going to be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, items for discussion, followed by a motion. BOCES representative. And I assume that it needs to be someone from the SU board?
Yes.
Okay. So the BOCE includes, doesn't include Hartford, it includes Woodstock, Windsor, Springfield. And it is an organization that has just started to help share resources, especially around students of particular needs. And so there is a BOCE board, and we need to send a representative to the BOCE board.
I'll just throw out there, it's boards of collaborative educational services.
Thank you.
And our region is the first one in Vermont.
And we threw that a couple meetings ago, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Right.
Anne Marie.
When do their meetings typically take place?
No idea.
No idea.
The wild.
But I can find out. Is do we know who the current representative is?
Do we have a current representative?
I
We
don't
just
think we
barely
would, yeah.
created it. I don't think we have one.
Yeah, I think this is
This is the initial election.
our inaugural representative.
Amy. Sorry.
Was
Okay.
Elizabeth working with it quite a bit? I know she was pretty vocal in
Yeah.
getting the groups working together.
Yeah.
Might be hard during the session though, or
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And with the upcoming election, could be kind of crazy.
Mhm.
But she would be a person to ask, but I'm sure Christine would know too.
My assumption would be, and this is maybe something else we could check into, is I'm sure the meetings would be remote.
Yeah.
Because it expands a fairly large area.
Bill, if we don't have details about the commitment, and if there's not a really strong reason to do it, this meeting, I'd say if we can find that stuff out and table it and then.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. I think these are all great questions, and I think we need to have answers if someone's going to. Something like this, it is really quite important to have someone step up and volunteer to do it. And I hesitate to step up because next year I have negotiation to do.
I'll throw out that I am tentatively interested because that's my education background is in
Right.
special education and that kind of cohort that would be accessing these services probably. So
Okay.
it's interesting to me, but I really need to know what the commitment is.
So we'll find out the commitment and bring it back to the SU board.
Does anyone have an objection to table this until we have more information? Hearing none. Setting for the next agenda.
The financials quarterly, end of quarter 3 will be out.
Yep.
So I'll have that.
We have all the same policies to go over.
That's correct.
So no sense adding more to that.
Policies as is.
Quarterly.
Tracy, are you,
Yep.
doing a presentation at the next meeting?
And, if something comes up, then Christine will just contact me,
Okay.
because I'm sure,
And if you can, Bill,
might
can
be
you
like-
hear me?
yes,
Bill? I'm losing him,
yes.
frozen.
You-
I'll
Again,
turn
you
on my
might want to
camera.
freeze your camera. Okay,
There you go. D23 just needs to read third reading, right, again.
Yeah.
yes, it will be. So, so to summarize, we have D23, third read, and then C44, same, cardiac, third read, and then the rest are first reads. I mean, second reads.
You got
Second
it.
read.
All right.
Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and the ayes have it. I want to thank everybody for a great meeting and your trust in me being board chair. I'd like to mention that again. And Amy, I'd like to again thank you for being so knowledgeable. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Yes, you too. Take care, everybody.
I'm really interested to see what time that is.
Yeah.
Even as I offer myself up for it, I'm like,